My parents turned the whole town against me after I exposed our family tradition. But the secret my dying brother kept under his bed blew everything wide open. The first time my mother forced tequila down my throat, I was 10 years old. My father held my arms behind my back, laughing like it was some kind of rite of passage. "She's one of us now," he declared, while my older brother Kyle cheered. That was our version of a family tradition. And what happened next shocked everyone and changed our family forever. Every Friday night in our suburban Texas kitchen turned into what Dad called training night. There was no Monopoly or movie marathons like at my friends' houses, just shot glasses, a ticking stopwatch, and push-ups if you made a face. Our rule was simple: the family that drinks together stays together. That motto had been passed down like an heirloom, wrapped in the stench of generational trauma and cheap scotch. Kyle, 2 years older and desperate to impress, took to it like a pro. By the time he was 14, he was winning beer pong against Dad's poker buddies. When he started trembling at breakfast, Dad handed him a Bud Light and called it hair of the dog. That was the kind of love you earned in our house, the kind that came in bottles and cans. Kyle got video games, concert tickets, even a Yamaha motorcycle when he turned 16. I got called a buzzkill for doing my homework. I tried to be invisible. Straight A's, part-time job, captain of the debate team. Still, I was the judgy one. Mom loved to say, "You think you're better than us just because you won't loosen up and have some fun." Hard to take that seriously when she couldn't pronounce her own name after 8 p.m. I wanted to tell someone. Maybe the school counselor. Maybe the cops. But I remembered what happened to Jessica, my best friend. After she reported her dad for abuse, the social worker left, and her dad broke her collarbone. CPS wasn't just useless, it was dangerous. So I stayed quiet. I smiled. I poured drinks. I learned how to fake sip and pour out wine into potted plants without anyone noticing. But I couldn't fake what I saw on Kyle's 18th birthday. He was doubled over on the porch, laughing through obvious pain in his side. "Probably just need more tolerance," he joked, skin yellowing under the porch light. Dad slapped him on the back and brought out a $200 bottle of scotch. "That'll fix ya," he grinned. I thought he was kidding, until Mom pulled out her phone to record it for Kyle's future kids. That was the moment it clicked. If I wanted to survive this family, I had to become one of them. I stopped resisting. I started acting. I faked drunken giggles. I dry-swallowed vodka and let it dribble down my chin when no one was looking. I laughed at their blackout stories like they were family folklore. It worked. I was in. But Oregon State saved me. My freshman roommate was in recovery, and through her, I discovered what sober actually meant. I joined the campus support group. I trained for marathons. I learned what real fun was: unpoisoned, unslurred, unbroken. For the first time in my life, I felt free. That's why I came home that winter break. Not because I missed them, because I thought maybe, just maybe, I could save them. I brought alcohol-free beer, printed photos of my new sober life, and even bought non-alcoholic champagne. I knew it was a long shot, but I wanted to believe. The second I stepped through the door, Dad shoved a beer into my hand. "There's our college party girl." When I declined, gently, explaining I was training for a race, Mom's expression shifted from cheer to sneer. "Oh, so you're one of those now." I didn't even make it to my bedroom before they followed me. "You're not ruining Christmas by being a sanctimonious little witch," Mom slurred. Dad grabbed my arms. I screamed. They forced tequila into my mouth, laughing while I choked. Kyle watched from the hallway, too drunk to speak. I faked passing out. Then I did the only thing I could. I called 911 from my closet. When the sirens cut through the air, I knew it wasn't just about me anymore. This was bigger. This was war. The emergency responders found me on the floor of my childhood bedroom, makeup smeared across my face and tequila breath soaked into my shirt. My voice was hoarse from crying and half screaming into the closet carpet. The paramedic looked confused. "You called?" he asked, glancing around at my parents who stood behind him smiling like polite hosts at a wine tasting. "She's just tired," Mom said sweetly, arm around my shoulders like we were best friends. "Poor thing's been under so much stress. She's not herself lately." I tried to explain. I said the words: forced drinking, emotional abuse, years of it. The paramedic gave me a look like he wanted to believe me, but something shifted when Dad pulled him aside. I caught a few words: scholarship stress, drinking problem, overreaction. Suddenly the whole mood changed. They didn't cuff me. They didn't even say under arrest. They just handed me off to two officers who calmly explained that I'd been placed under a temporary psychiatric hold for erratic behavior. My parents had filed the paperwork hours ago. They claimed I'd been threatening self-harm and others. I hadn't said a single word like that. But apparently, 5 community affidavits backed them up. Uncle Tony even wrote one. He's not even my real uncle, just Dad's poker buddy who brings over rum balls at Christmas and calls me kiddo. In his statement, he claimed he'd seen me, talking to myself in the mirror and scratching at my arms. I don't even own a full-length mirror anymore. They took my phone, my shoes, my dignity. The psychiatric center was beige and humming with fluorescent lights that never dimmed. I shared a room with a woman who believed birds were CIA drones. The nurses asked if I'd like to join group therapy. You can talk about what's upsetting you, one said, all too cheerfully. I laughed. What would I say? My family drinks battery acid for brunch, and now they've thrown me in here for saying no. My parents visited the next morning. They brought a fruit basket and a Bible. We're doing this because we love you, Mom said. Dad just nodded. You've been sick for a long time. I asked to leave. They told me I couldn't, because I was on their insurance. They still had medical proxy. They'd spoken to the hospital administrator already. This is what's best, Dad said, like he was tucking me into bed, not locking me in a beige box. I begged to speak to an outside doctor. The nurse promised they'd review it, but the review never came. That night, I remembered something that chilled me to my core. When I was 15, after Kyle broke his arm in a drunken accident, I wrote in my diary, I wish I could disappear and take them with me. It was just a sentence, angsty teen venting, but I knew they'd find it. I'd left that diary behind when I packed for college. And suddenly, I could hear Uncle Tony's smug voice. She's always had issues with her family. They were building a case against me. From the inside. 2 days later, they brought in the hospital psychiatrist, a man named Dr. Feldman. Buttoned up, mid-50s, voice like butter left out too long. He asked me why I felt the need to weaponize sobriety. I blinked. Excuse me, I said. You seem to believe your family's lifestyle is abusive. Could it be that you're projecting internal guilt onto them? I stared at him. This man didn't know me, didn't know a single thing about me, but his notes were already written before I walked in. And then I understood. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to erase me. That night, I stopped playing nice. I whispered to another patient, Jessica, the one with the CIA bird theory. She had been here before. She knew where they kept the records. Follow the nurse when she goes for meds, she said. File room is past the rec hall. I waited until 2:30 a.m. Then I moved. What I found in my file made my blood run cold. Handwritten letters, Mom's, Uncle Tony's, even Kyle's, each detailing episodes I'd never had. Photos of my room made to look like I was hoarding pills. A doctor's note, dated the day before my 911 call, recommending extended observation. They'd planned this. And then I found the financial statements. They'd printed my scholarship letters, my tuition coverage from OSU, and highlighted the part that said dependent on continued enrollment and mental fitness. They weren't just locking me up to shut me up. They were trying to get me expelled. But that's not all. I also found a form, a transfer request, to a long-term facility. They were planning to make this permanent. The moment I realized I could disappear for real, papers signed, facility arranged, my name crossed out of the family ledger like I never existed, something ancient snapped inside me. Rage. Not the dramatic, shout into a pillow kind. Cold, calculating, surgical. I stopped being scared. I became patient. I knew now. This wasn't a panic decision. My parents had choreographed every move. Their financial power, their social network, even their insurance plan. It all fed into this illusion that I was the problem. Not the alcohol. Not the decades of generational dysfunction. Just me. So I started acting. In therapy group, I played the part. I understand now, I'd say, hands folded like a penitent nun. I was trying to control people with my sobriety. Dr. Feldman practically glowed. He added significant improvement and insight to his notes and scheduled a discharge evaluation. But every night, I revisited that file room. I copied everything, letters, schedules, doctor's comments, onto a flash drive I found in the lost and found bin. And I began writing, too. My own notes. My side. My story. One night, I found something that hollowed me out. It was a scanned image from a few months back, a legal document my parents had filed in family court, petitioning for limited conservatorship. of me, claiming I was mentally unfit to handle my own finances or life decisions due to chronic delusional thinking. They wanted to take everything, not just my voice, my entire life. That night, I had a dream, more like a memory. I was 11. I'd made Mom a birthday breakfast. Pancakes, uneven and lopsided, and eggs I nearly burned. I'd cleaned up after myself too, just like she liked. But when she came downstairs, she wasn't happy. She was furious. Because I used the good eggs. The free-range organic ones she was saving for her girlfriend's brunch. She threw the whole plate in the trash. "You think you're special?" she said, jabbing a finger into my chest. "Stop pretending to be the hero all the time. Nobody likes a saint." I hadn't thought about that day in years. But now it all clicked. My entire childhood had been a silent war between my parents' chaos and my desperate need to make things okay. And they hated me for it. Because I wouldn't sync with them. Because I stayed sober. Because I kept remembering. 2 days before my discharge hearing, Dr. Feldman invited me to his office for a final review. I played it perfectly. Calm, grateful, ready to heal at home. He nodded along, pleased with himself, already preparing his summary. "I'll be recommending outpatient therapy," he said. "You'll return to your parents' care with oversight." Perfect. I waited until 4 a.m. when the shift changed. Slipped the flash drive and a 2-page statement. Everything I'd documented, everything I remembered, into an envelope. I addressed it to 3 places. My old debate coach, now teaching law at UT Austin, the director of the OSU Sober Living program, and the local newspaper editor who once printed a feature about our model suburban family. I'd once memorized 300 pages of debate briefs in a week. Writing that summary took 3 hours. Every sentence was a knife. Every paragraph a hand grenade. Then I made my final move. I called Kyle. He didn't answer at first. Then he did. His voice was slurred. "You finally hit rock bottom?" he said, snorting. "No," I said. "You did. And I have proof." He hung up. But 5 minutes later, he called back. Crying. Really crying. "They're trying to put me in rehab," he said. Took my bike. Said if I didn't comply, I'd be cut off. "I'm living in the garage now." It hit me then. The golden child was just gold-plated. Underneath, he was just another casualty. A pawn, like me. I sent out the letters, I said. He went quiet. "They're going to come for you next," I told him. "You need to choose a side." He didn't answer. But 2 hours later, just before my discharge, Kyle showed up at the hospital. He walked into Dr. Feldman's office, reeking of alcohol, but armed with a USB drive of his own. Photos of bruises, recordings of our parents threatening him, a video clip of Mom yelling, "You want to end up like your sister?" and Dad replying, "Don't worry, she'll be out of the picture soon." By the time I walked into the office, Dr. Feldman's hands were shaking. "Are you ready to go home?" he asked. "I already am," I said. "But that's not the part that gets me. The part that gets me is what Kyle whispered on the way out. I read your diary, the one from when you were 15. I know what you wrote." I froze. He smiled, tired and sad. I felt the same way. We never talked about it again. But that was the first time I realized I wasn't the only one who wanted out. By the time we stepped into court, my parents had already set the stage. Their lawyer wore pearls and sympathy, quoting phrases like "tragic mental decline" and "we're just trying to help our daughter." I sat between Kyle and my campus advocate, wearing a plain blazer and a new layer of skin that didn't quite fit right. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. They were asking for a limited conservatorship, citing my psychiatric instability and inability to manage adult responsibilities. Never mind that I was top of my class, fully employed, and had lived independently since 17. They painted me as delusional, paranoid, traumatized by my own imagination. Their evidence? A patchwork of family testimonies. Uncle Tony claimed I had threatened him with a kitchen knife at Christmas. I'd cut cheese. That was it. Mom read excerpts from my teenage diary aloud like scripture, lines taken out of context, twisted into caricatures of instability. I sat there, listening to the girl I used to be get dissected like a case study. But I had my own exhibits. I submitted medical documentation from the psychiatric hold, showing 0 signs of psychosis. A letter from my campus counselor confirming sustained sobriety and emotional health. Screenshots of texts from Mom mocking my decision to get sober. Video clips from our front porch camera, ones my parents forgot to delete, where they screamed at me, shoved alcohol into my hands. And then, I played the voicemail. It was from Mom, left the morning after my 911 call. "You little brat. Do you think you're some kind of martyr? You're going to destroy this family with your drama. If you say one more word about our problem, we'll make sure you never get out." The judge stared at the speakerphone like it had bitten him. Then came Kyle's testimony. He told the court everything. How Dad had beaten him during withdrawal, how they staged my psychiatric hold as revenge for refusing to drink at Christmas, how they tried to coerce him into rehab to keep him quiet. When he broke down crying, something cracked in the courtroom. Even the opposing lawyer looked down. My parents? Stone-faced. But then the judge looked at them. "You filed for control of your daughter's finances, living situation, and medical choices, claiming she's unfit. But everything I've seen shows a young woman who tried to set boundaries and got punished for it." Motion denied. He didn't stop there. He referred the case to the state's Adult Protective Services for further investigation. And when we stepped out of the courtroom, my mom didn't speak, didn't blink, just stared at me like she didn't recognize the person standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't, because I wasn't the same. I'd spent years being the sober mirror to their chaos, the clean glass they kept trying to crack. But now I was something else. Now I was the girl who'd survived them. We walked out of the courthouse into cold sunlight. Kyle lit a cigarette with shaking hands. "Want one?" he asked. I shook my head. "I'm still sober." He laughed, coughing halfway through. "I'm thinking about trying, too," he said. "Not for them. Just for me." That night, I got home to an email. From the same local newspaper I'd sent the file to. Subject line, "We read everything. Are you willing to talk?" I hesitated. Not because I was scared. Because I knew, if I said yes, this wasn't just my story anymore. This was going to burn their legacy to the ground. And part of me still wanted to protect them. But another part, the part that remembered the tequila at 10, the forced hospitalization, the diary in court, wanted blood. I hit reply. "Yes, I'm ready." And just as I hit send, my phone buzzed. A blocked number. I answered, and heard my father's voice. "You think you've won? This isn't over." But he was wrong. It had only just begun. The article went live on a Thursday morning, right as the town was waking up to their lattes and local newsfeed scrolls. The headline hit like a Molotov. Suburban sobriety or family conspiracy. One daughter's fight against institutional gaslighting. They used a photo of me at my college graduation, face serious, holding a sign that read, "Silence isn't love." And just beneath the headline, in bold, "My parents tried to erase me. This is the story they didn't want you to read." It spread fast, faster than I expected. By noon, the story had been picked up by 2 regional outlets. By dinner time, it was on Reddit, shared under r/insane parents, then r/raised by narcissists, and eventually r/news. The comment section exploded. And my parents? They imploded. Uncle Tony went private on all platforms within hours. Mom tried to write a rebuttal on Facebook, some bizarre mix of apology and rage. "We always loved our daughter, even when she was troubled." But the top comment was a screenshot of her voicemail. "Dad's job suspended him pending review." Apparently, when your daughter accuses you of medical fraud and forced psychiatric abuse, even a mid-tier marketing firm has to pretend to care. But that's not what satisfied me most. What really got me, what healed something deep in my gut, was the email from Hannah. I hadn't seen her since freshman year. We were in the same intro psych class. She wrote, "Your story, that was my story too. I never knew anyone else. Thank you." It was like I'd whispered through the void, and someone whispered back. Still, the backlash was brutal. Kyle lost most of his friends, all from that same loyalist high school crew. Our old pastor wrote a vague blog post about wolves in sheep's clothing. Strangers called me ungrateful, said I'd ruined my parents' lives over some sobriety cult. But the silence from my parents? That was the loudest. They never reached out. Not once. Until 6 weeks later. I was walking home from campus, earbuds in, when I saw it. A box on my doorstep. Inside, my childhood diary. A note, tucked between the pages. "You always wanted to be remembered. Now you will be." No name. No return address. But the handwriting? My mother's. That night, I reread the whole thing. Every page. Every panicked scribble. The line about wanting to disappear. The poem I wrote about trying to save my brother. The drawing of me, with a cape, saving a stick-figure family while they threw bottles at me. And for the first time, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt proud. The next morning, I added an update to the article. They tried to name me crazy. I named myself Survivor. I started speaking at recovery panels. Universities invited me to talk about forced conservatorship. I wasn't just a daughter anymore. I was a case study, a warning, a name they'd never forget. Kyle. He's sober now. For months clean. We talk every Sunday. Sometimes we don't say much. Sometimes we cry. But we're still here. And my parents? They're still in town. Still whispering to their neighbors about mental illness. But they stopped filing anything. Stopped calling. Stopped pretending to care. Good. Because I don't need their name anymore. I made my own.